All right, we're live. Great live. We're talking about AI, generative AI, all things generative AI, and the AI Weekly LinkedIn Live here. Got Laura Hill, got Chris Knotts. So, Chris, you wanted to showcase something today. You want to talk about Gemini, is that right?
Well, sure. I mean, there's few things we could talk about, but the one that I've been tinkering with lately, which is brand new, is this the I guess what you could say the official rollout of Gemini, which provides pretty seamless integration between other Google apps and Gemini. So this kind of multimodality is something we were talking about a little bit last year, kind of anticipating it, and well, now it's here. So been playing with it a little bit. It's pretty cool. And the first thing to say about it is that one of the big benefits here is that it is free. So if you have a Google, yeah, so if you have a Google account, previously, even last year, the Google Sheets allowed for a Chat GPT plugin. So if you went and installed your plugins there, there was GPT plugin you could get, but the plugin obviously worked best with GPT-4, the paid subscription. So there was some cost there. But now with the Gemini rollout, obviously it's all Google products. So the Gemini plugin is just kind of built in, like you don't even have to install it or integrate it.
Right,
yeah, it's just right there, and you don't have to pay for it. So it's just all at your fingertips. So pretty cool. So I will show you just one example. And again, like as ever, the use cases are just endless here. So, don't get too hung up on specifics here, but this is something I've been working with. So Laura, I know you're a marketer, so hopefully you will enjoy this.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. And I love using Google Sheets too. It's just so easy. So can't wait to see this. And if anyone has questions, feel free to chat them in. We love to interact with you guys and know what you're thinking. If you have comments, please put them in the chat. We'll
Absolutely.
get to them as we can.
So as I've learned sometimes the hard way, you don't do live demos without having prepared results in advance, because inevitably they'll fail. So much like one of those cooking shows, I've kind of got one that I baked in advance, and I'll just walk you through the process a little bit here. So what you see here is just a basic Google Sheet. And this sheet, it has a number of columns that goes all the way over to, and this is, I promise, sheer coincidence. I did not plan it this way. It goes over and ends at column AI. So sign from the universe, maybe. But let me explain what I've done here. So what this is it's a content generator that uses a cascading series of prompts, which make Bard calls or Gemini calls. It's still referred to Bard on the back end. The only original content that you populate in are these keywords, right? So as I'm working on my web presence in 2024, obviously I need some help with content, and so that's what this will do. So in column A, I'll populate just a term that I am interested in generating content on. So this term I've used here, master data management, term of interest to me. And then you can see these manually written prompts here. So what's the best SEO keyword related to master data management? And then you'll see there's kind of an error here that's generating this weird little tag. But if you double click on it, you'll see that let me enlarge this so I can make sure you're seeing okay.
There you go.
Yeah. So you'll see that what this is doing is it is initiating a Bard call based on the content from this previous cell B2, right? And then we go on and continue to write manual prompts that relies on the output of the content from the previous cell, and it just goes in a linear fashion. Now, stop for a minute and talk just a little bit about the Bard call. So if you come up here in Sheets now, you'll see that in extensions, you've got these options. Now, this is my previously installed GPT plugin, which I was using for this kind of thing last year. Well, now you have something called App Script within Sheets. So if you select App Script, you'll come up here and it takes you to this little App Script studio. And this is just a place where you can develop custom little code snippets that integrate into the sheet. All right. So now to do what I'm doing here, you will need to set up a Gemini API. And I'm not going to get into that right now. It's really easy to do. But basically, just need a Google account. You'll have to get Google to return you an API key. Now, once you have your API key, and I'm trying hard not to be too geeky here. It really is not too hard. So you'll paste the API key and write this little script into your app script, and this will allow a Bard call using your Google account's API, which will just use simple 35 lines of scripting to populate into the prompt to Bard whatever this content is, right? So once you're done with that, you'll come up here, you'll deploy the script, and then that script will be available to you in the sheet. So then when you've done this, it's very simple. All you do right here equals the Bard. That's the Bard call. The Bard call is combined with the content from the previous cell, and that'll populate the next cell's content. So you'll see this goes on and on, right? And so basically what I'm doing here is it will start with the main term, master data management, and it'll use Google's knowledge base via a Bard call to answer this prompt. What's the best SEO keyword related to master data management? So now I'll hop on over here to the one that's actually that I've already run. So you'll see that based on Google's point of view, the top SEO keyword is master data management software. And so then it'll use that SEO keyword, which it's identified based on the concept in A1, and you say, pretend you're an SEO specialist, et cetera, et cetera. Now we want to know the 5 relevant SEO LSI keywords. Now, LSI keywords are just adjacent keywords that will help power content visibility based on the original content or concept. So these are the LSI keywords. You see they're pretty good. These are probably the LSI keywords I would have guessed. And then moving on over here, pretend you're an SEO specialist, et cetera. So you continue to prompt the thing. And then basically what will happen here is you'll start to brick by brick, it will do a little bit of analysis. So in this column H, you're asking for a little bit of just qualitative speculation about what type of problem somebody may be searching for any of these 5 LSA terms would be. It'll give you a little bit of output here. This is just, logic, again, the Bard call, calling on the content from the previous cell. And then we start to ask Bard to generate content. So now the way we've done this is we go ahead and ask Bard as well to generate some basic CSS tagging around the content. Now, there's an important reason for this, and I'll show you the output here in just a second. The reason that we go ahead and have it generate H tags and paragraph tags is that then it'll allow you to integrate the final content, which I'll show you in just a minute, right into a CMS. So for instance, if you're using WordPress or some other common CMS, the CMS can suck the final output right into its editor studio, and the HTML tags are already there, and boom, it'll populate right away. So you've already automated even the basic styling that's needed. So you kind of get the idea here, right? I'm not going to go through these all one by one. You can get the idea, but here we're asking it to write the URL slug that best aligns. So all the content that's being generated here is based on the initial analysis that was done to optimize for the SEO results. So now we start to get it to generate an outline for the article. And the final result of this series of calls will be an article which is optimized for SEO around master data management and the adjacent keywords people might be searching for. So, of course, you can't generate a whole big, long article all at once. You have to do it piece by piece. So we do this by asking Bard to create the outline, and then the rest of these cells is just section by section, asking it to generate the content for that section. So it goes on, and by the time you're done over here, you will get all the sections of the article written until you get to the final column here, in which it consolidates all of the content. And then it's not a Bard call, it's just a normal Excel sheets function that will combine the content from all the cell outputs into the final output, right? So, So it gives us something like this. Now, just for a little cherry on top, I've gone ahead and used Bard over here to do a little bit of CSS application. We don't have to do this. If you were sucking this into a CMS, this would be done for you, but I had some font preferences and some style preferences I wanted to apply. And the final result is something that's going to look about like this. So this is, again, as with all this stuff, you probably don't want to just pull the lever and paste this directly onto your onto your website, but it's a pretty good place to start, and it saves a lot of work, right? So here you can see like all of the sections are combined. It's
all optimized for that specific keyword.
Correct. It's all optimized from the specific keyword, which Bard generated. We did not generate the term for the optimization. We generated the initial concept, and Bard identified the keyword that was probably the most relevant. So now, as ever, the AI can make mistakes. So, we may not want to be promoting the idea of MDM software. That's what Bard identified, right? But you get an idea of how this works. So that's pretty much my little demo.
What about timing? Can you set up the timing where you can do an article a week?
Yeah, you can. So that would be handled probably on the CMS side, but you can use this to just generate obviously cells and cells and cells of content, and then you can set up the scheduler with the sheets to CMS integration to where you're just posting this on a regular.
So it's not just now about writing an article, which we know that go to Claude or you can go to Perplexity or Chat GPT and write an article. This is about writing content that's very specific to a keyword that you want to generate organic SEO for.
Exactly right. So, and again, it's not perfect. It's not the end all be all, but it gets you, 50, 60, 80% of the way there. And then it's going to be much faster, obviously, to proofread and edit this kind of stuff and make sure.
You said that some of the meta tagging can be done automatically through this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do the meta tagging. Now, the tagging that I did was just some CSS tagging, which generates, the bulleted lists and the bolding. Yep. Very, very simple, basic styling. But you could now it did do the URL slug, which is related, right? So that again, you could this one that would allow you to, again, in the CMS, go ahead and provide the page title and the URL title.
And for folks that know, you're talking about CSS, you're talking about cascading style sheet. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So, I'm talking about two different things here. Now, there's the CSS, which is basic style, and then there's this slug. The slug is just the URL slug. Very important, obviously, for SEO as well, right? Because you want the relevant terms to be reflected in the URL. So you can generate all that stuff and go ahead and populate it in. Now, one caveat with this, which I will share, it's not a super bad caveat, but it is something to be aware of. When I was first playing with this, this one for this demo, I've used just one row of content, right? But you can do this, 3-4 rows at a time if you have different terms that you want to generate content for. Now, interestingly, you can also do this with a URL. So this is set up so that you can put in either just a keyword, or you can do a scraped URL, and then Bard's logic will extrapolate the terms and the content from some URL that you're looking to kind of emulate. So that's pretty cool. But if you get more than just a couple rows deep here, as you can see, if we go back over to the native sheet here, everything that has this little tag name waiting to do Bard generation here is making a Bard call, right? So if you're not careful, every time you open the sheet, it will load the sheet and it will load all those Bard calls. So you can max out your token usage real quick if you have too many of these. So you kind of have to pace yourself. Again, it's not the end of the world if it happens. You just have to wait a while for the token allotment to reset before you go. But if you just go crazy and try
token allotment, explain that for folks.
So tokenization with the LLM tools, whether it's Bard or ChatGPT or most of the others, a token basically is equivalent to what is it, Laura? Help me out. I think it's one word.
A word, basically. Yeah, it's like a word count.
Yeah, it's like a word count. So that's the currency that the LLM models use to keep you from just, burning up the entire data center with, as you boil the ocean using their computation. So there's a quota.
Now, Chris, you could have used ChatGPT for this.
I could have, but it would cost, and it would have entailed the integration of the third-party GPT plugin. So there's, it's not just one way to do it. I just liked this because the best way to get the integration with the CRM the CMS is with a sheet. It doesn't have to be a Google sheet. It could be a spreadsheet or whatever, but Sheets is like the most obvious choice. And so using Google Sheets and the Gemini integration, it's just so seamless, and it's free, as I mentioned.
Yeah, this is really interesting. People were starting to try to piece this together with plugins when ChatGPT 4 came out. We were talking to marketing experts who were trying to make a system like this. But I think this is a great example of why it's so important to keep an eye on what Google's doing. And, all the attention's pretty much been on ChatGPT 4. But I mean, if Gemini is already integrated into Google Sheets and you can make it that one step easier, then this is going to really save us some time. And it seems like the quality of the outputs are similar as to what you would have been able to do, but you have less to piece together. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you is you mentioned this is free. So I'm assuming this is a free Google account that everyone has access to this now, right? It's not like you signed up for a beta and you have special access, but this is like rolled out across the board now.
Yep, that's right. So if you have a regular Google account and you open Sheets, you'll see that extensions option in your file menu, and the
that's great.
Yeah, the app scripts library will be there.
Isn't it amazing that they don't tell you
also,
about it, though? They don't tell a basic layman about this. I mean, just magically appears in the sheet functionality, and somehow you have to stumble upon it unless you listen to some type of LinkedIn Live or podcast like this. I just wish there was a better way when they roll out capabilities that it's articulated to the general population.
Well, you're preaching to the choir on that one. That's what we call change management or lack thereof.
It's just wild to me, even at the Google level.
And Chris, are you using something like Zapier to connect it to your CMS, or how are you connecting it and getting that to automatically flow in?
So I've only played with a little bit of the CMS applications because my geeky interest is primarily just on the usage of the AI. But basically anything that uses a WordPress backend, this workflow is kind of designed for WordPress, basically. Common CMS. I haven't really played with any others, although I have messed with porting this Sheets content into Canva, which is obviously like a pretty cool and cheap way to format your content into other types of assets, whether it's web content or not. But I'm this is kind of assuming like a WordPress style CMS, but others should work, but I haven't played with that, so I can't speak to those.
Okay, great. And so you did have to, though, reach out to get the API key, but that was basically all you had to do to get this spreadsheet built out.
Yep, that's right. And there's lots of, you can just go on YouTube. Like there's plenty of little tutorials or whatever out there on the web that explain how to get and set up the API key if you need that guidance.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we got a couple more minutes on the business side of things. Any updates associated with trends in AI that have been advertised out there in the business world recently that you wanted to chat about, Lara or Chris?
I think things have been relatively quiet with the holiday break, other than the news that the New York Times is suing OpenAI and Microsoft for copyright infringement. That's a big story. So definitely check that out if you haven't heard about what's happening there. Although I don't know that we'll have any quick answers with that. That's a big quandary that we're all kind of paying attention to as we see what happens and how this is going to affect things moving forward. Have you heard anything else going on noteworthy, Chris?
Nothing that I'm prepared to talk about. It seems like there's a little something every day, but not really. I'll defer to you for this week. I'll have more to talk about next week, I'm sure.
I have to say that the New York Times thing is going to be very interesting. Part of the precedent setting for legal situations like civil suits and so forth to build off of. So they're definitely went ahead and spending money to set a precedent. So we'll see what precedent is set and how long it takes to do that. And this is some of the same stuff that happened in the early days of the internet as well. It took lawsuits and legal actions to begin setting up, the direction that internet management and internet regulation and what you can do and what you can't do transpired. transpired.
I think that, I mean, the immediate takeaway I think that we should all continue to keep in mind is that these models can potentially give outputs that are either very close or even plagiarized from sources like the New York Times. So you never want to just use an output, copy pasted as your own, because you don't, you can't own that as your own. And I think one of the things they're finding and they're actually using as part of this lawsuit are examples of where ChatGPT outputted verbatim things from the New York Times. And so that's just a cautionary note for all of us that
What's
use this
interesting
tool.
though is that they cue the prompter to do that. Like, when I look at doing generic prompts and high level prompting, I just can't foresee a whole article coming out. But if you work the prompt such that you ask for something very specific, I could see that happening. So now where's the line between rigging the system and then also realizing that the system doesn't work that way unless you rig it? So people aren't going to rig it. So there's there need to be registration that affects everyone because there's a way for 5 people to do something like that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think this is one reason why I lean towards using Perplexity, where I can check the sources, versus ChatGPT. It doesn't automatically, or it's harder to find the sources. If it does give it, it's not as reliable. But Perplexity, I've always had good results with it, telling me exactly where it found the information and providing the link that I can cross-reference.
Yeah, I hear you. That's going to be an interesting way to deal with this, is that I'm sure I can replicate something I created on the internet if I just type in enough prompts and give them my name, and that magically comes out an article I wrote because I prompted all the way through to get to that. And we know that's not necessarily going to be the true use case. That's just one perspective, but it was certainly going to be very interesting. All right, then we have our AI Day for Managers coming up at the end of March, so we'll be talking about that more as well. And then Laura, you wanted to talk, or I could talk about the AI for Business Analysis class coming up at the end of the month.
Yep, you can talk about that. And then I've got a webinar tomorrow if anyone's interested in the topic of AI for project communications. So you can always sign up for our free webinars on the softdead.com website. If you just go to the Learning Hub and click webinars, you'll see a bunch. Chris has coming up after mine later this month as well. So some great topics that we've got in the queue.
Excellent. All right, then. With that said, we'll everybody go off and have a great rest of your day. Laura, Chris, thank you so much. Talk to you later.
Anytime. Happy New Year, everybody.
Bye.
Happy New Year.